space.
Hello and welcome to the 2020 Toyota GR Supra GT Cup. We're here today for the EMEA Region race. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me, as ever, Jimmy Broadbent here to guide you through the action. Jimmy, one make series, of course, in these Toyota Supras. It makes things very close and relatively unpredictable as well.
Yeah, that's right, of course. I kind of like it, actually, having just the one car, of course. As we said, it is the Toyota GR Supra. That is the star of our show today. Quick spec list to go through. Just under 400 horsepower, just over 1,500 kilograms from a 3-litre straight-six engine. Of course, our champion last year, GAZOO, from this region, the EMEA region, funnily enough, isn't actually here today, so kind of leaves it open for everybody else. But spec racing always has that element of excitement to it, I think, Tom.
It certainly does. Well, let's take a closer look at the circuit we're going to be competing at here today for this race. The Circuit de la Sarthe, a track that really needs no introduction, otherwise known, of course, as Le Mans. In France, home of the 24-hour race and various other disciplines as well. 13.6 kilometres long, a track that is just brilliant in every sense of the word. Some historic corners in there. Jimmy, some that you know very well indeed.
I tell you what, you don't usually see Supras go around here, though. I'll tell you that for free. But even though, despite that, the racing is going to be quite primarily the same. Long strikes around here means lots of slipstreaming and timing your overtaking opportunities before getting into that awesome last section there, where these cars will really be missing the fact they don't have big wings on. But that's part of the fun for our drivers. And of course, Le Mans, as we've said before, is just one of those circuits that just invokes emotion for me. I'm a long-time endurance racing fan, so whenever I see this picture here of the front straight, I just think of all the awesome races that have come before, and of course all those we have to look forward to. And again, fun fact, I've actually stood by the side of this circuit here and watched the cars come through, and you don't get an idea of that speed until you're there, Tom. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be here at Le Mans as well, commentating on some motorcycle racing a few years ago now, and it is just such a special place that just oozes character, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how these Supras will get on here. Let's take a closer look, shall we, at the race details going into this one for round 3 of the 2020 Toyota GR Supra GT Cup. As we said, taking place at Le Mans. Sports hard tyres available for our drivers to be competing on over the course of 4 laps here. You can see 15 times tyre wear, 2 times fuel consumption as well. A total race distance of 54.5 kilometres there, Jimmy. Those tyres are going to be pretty second-hand by the end of this one.
Yeah, you'd think the sports hard tyres will go forever. They tend to do so in-game, of course, but with that tyre wear multiplier there, even these things are going to get a little bit slippery towards the end. And of course, these cars being rear-wheel drive, a lot of the guys don't use any traction control at all because they find it easy to control the car. It does mean that on that last lap coming out of T18 Arnage, just before the second penalty line there, it's going to be very, very difficult getting that power down. But you know, another element of challenge for our drivers.
Well, let's take a closer look, shall we, and see how the grid lines up ahead of the race. Here then is how the field lines up ahead of the race. You can see 20 Supras ready to do battle at the Circuit de la Sarthe. A plethora of liveries. It's SRC SVDR that lines up on pole position. Alongside him on the front row of the grid, Williams B Racer, otherwise known as Valerio Gallo, has now joined the Williams eSports team. ROH Stig, the Hungarian driver, 3rd position on the grid for him. And alongside him, Williams Gio in 4th place. The 3rd row of the grid is headed by CL16, the Dutch driver, and alongside him is the German MJM Racing NR1. Next row of the grid, Williams Koke Lopez, of course, in 7th position. Very simple looking livery on his car by style comparison to the WRC replica livery of PR1 Will in 8th place. 9th position, PCM STJ, the Portuguese driver, with rounding at the top 10, BFR Albathor, the Frenchman, on home soil here at Le Mans. 11th place, HRG RK23, otherwise known, of course, as Rick Cavallum, in 11th place. And then alongside him is GTA Kriza, the British driver, down in 12th. Next row of the grid, headed by TX3 Survey, the French-speaking Belgian, I should say, in 13th position. PR1 Yasete in 14th, the Spaniard, 2nd Spaniard on the grid down there on as we said. 15th place, PR1 Ponce in 15th place. PRST Alpine lines up in 16th position. Heading towards the back of the grid, you can see CRL Org down in 17th place. Work to do for him then. 18th position is McGinn in the 2020 Supra. VQS Fons in 19th place. And rounding out the 20 driver-strong grid is GTP Aguila, the Portuguese driver. So, predictions, Jimmy, very quickly down towards T1.
Let's hope it's not going to be the same as the Oceania region. Keep it clean, guys. Penalties very, very early on can mess up your race for the entire thing, so let's hope they keep it clean.
Revs are up, ready for a start then for round 3 of the 2020 Toyota GR Supra GT Cup here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. 4 laps for these drivers to do battle with. And who is going to get the best drag down to that first corner and into the heavy braking zone of the Dunlop chicane? We're about to find out as the jet flies overhead and the race is about to go green here. Lights out and away we go then. Good start for the pole setter of SRC SVDR. Keep an eye out for 2nd place as well of Williams B Racer. Does he pull alongside? ROH Sting in the slipstream there, ready to try and do battle and try and challenge for 2nd position, potentially for the race lead as they come through the first curve and heading towards the Dunlop chicane then. Side by side we go with SRC SVDR and Williams B Racer into that chicane. ROH Sting on the inside here, ready to take advantage. Everybody taking it very gingerly through those first couple of corners, and I can't say I blame them because it does bunch up quite significantly, but crucially, a very clean start from all of our drivers as Williams B Racer and the Hungarian of ROH Stig going side by side once again here.
Yeah, that's allowing SVDR in front to get a little bit of a gap coming up to Church Routes the first time coming down the Mulsanne straight. Of course, these guys all bunched up at the moment, so there'll be lots of drafting coming down to the first chicane. Here we are looking back there from Valerio Gallo, otherwise known as Williams B Racer, of course. There's Rose Stig behind, and then Giorgio Mangano behind in 4th position. Koke Lopez, good start from him up to 5th. From 7th on the grid there, so a good start from the Spanish driver, and now it becomes a bit of a draft fest coming down towards the first corner. Looks like SRC SVDR has pulled away a little bit from the front, just trying to break the toe, weaving a little bit down the straight. That's you're allowed to do that with 1 move. Let's see who wants to lunge coming down to the first chicane.
So, in towards that first chicane, we're about to come in a few moments' time, very late on the race, bit of a lunge there by the looks of things for Williams Koke, trying to make his way up ahead of Gio then, Williams Gio of course, otherwise known as Giorgio Mangano, wasn't quite able to make that move stick, and if he's not too careful here, he could fall under pressure from the German driver of MJM Racing NR1, who is very close behind. A penalty being given there as well for MJM Racing, so clearly he has exceeded track limits. A few penalties being given as well, as Albathor and TRL Org, the two Frenchmen on circuit, have also exceeded track limits, picked up a half-second penalty. Riding on board here with Williams Koke in the slipstream for 4th position. Is he going to pull out of the slipstream and do a move on his fellow Williams teammate? Not quite at the moment, but it just goes to show here that one mistake can cost you very dear indeed.
Yeah, it's kind of the double-edged sword at the moment here. It's really important to get a good exit, good entry into these chicanes, because you lose a lot of speed on the exit if you have a bad time through there. But of course, the other side to that, if you take a little bit too much curb, you could end up picking up one of these penalties, which then just plummets you back down the field when we get to our first penalty zone, which will be just coming out of Arnage. We're on board now with Coque Lopez, getting a good view of the GR Supra cockpit as we come down now towards the Mulsanne corner. Very heavy braking zone here. We're used to about 160 mile an hour, and then hard on the end, you see the cars there moving under deceleration. As we focus on Rose Stig right now. Good exit from him. Giorgio Mangano very close behind, and again SVDR still with that 1.2 second gap at the head of the field there. He'll be very happy with that. But penalties for 6th, 7th and 8th place, which will probably allow this top 5 to put away somewhat.
Keep an eye and see how it goes. ROH Stig there in 3rd place. That, of course, is Zolt Zarka, a familiar face if you watch our top 16 Superstars races on the FIA GT Championships. At the moment in the lead of the race is SRC SVDR, otherwise known as Martin Schriderik, the Polish driver who, again, has featured very heavily in those races to date. Here is PR1 Sarthe then, ready to try and do battle in 10th position at the moment, challenging PR1 Will, who is in 9th position, not quite able to find his way past. He's in a bit of a British sandwich here. At the moment is PR1 Yasete. He's the ham-on in a British sandwich, if you will. Meanwhile, in towards the right-hander we go. Very late from some people on the brakes there. A bit of content, I think, in the midfield there, as some people were just getting a little bit too greedy under braking. A few penalties being served there, as well as TRL Org falls down the order. He's going to fall foul to his countryman, as well as PRST Alpine makes his way through into 17th position. So TRL Org, the Team Redline driver, not having an ideal race here so far. Meanwhile, it's all kicking off in the lower half of the top 10. Look at this battle going on as well. We can see CL16 involved in a nice dice here with PR1 Will. Bit of contact through the Porsche curves to boot, and PR1 Yasete is about to join into the party as well. Just in the forefront there is MJM Racing, who was challenging for the top 5 a few moments ago, but has now fallen back into this squabble, as we said, in the lower half of the top 10. But it's all to play for here and getting very interesting.
You're not really a place you can go 2x2 through those Porsche curves unless you have a lot of downforce. And of course, these cars do not. They're road cars, so they need all the road to get the maximum possible cornering speed through there. But of course, it's a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th all bunch together after their penalties, coming now down to the first of the last chicane here, the Ford chicane. Very, very easy to get a cut track through here if you take just too much of the curb on the inside there. You see there, CL16 takes a lot of that curb, and the thing is, you do that, take a hefty amount of curb on the inside. It unsettles the car on exit and slows you down coming down the back straight. That's going to allow PR1 the Will here to have a look at the Dutch driver, looking at now on board from CL16, coming up to the first corner to the inside right-hander. So Will have the inside here, will be the outside for the first of Dunlop chicane, and CL16 I think will just about keep the place. Will he? No, Will goes a long way around. Wow, made that stick. Will takes 7th place. A good bit of opportunity to drive there from Will, but of course now he'll be the one giving the draft going down the straight, so we'll see how that pans out for the British driver.
Very aggressive stuff indeed. Good to see here at the start of lap 2 for round 3 of the Toyota GR Supra GT Cup. If you have just joined us, this is getting very exciting for the lower half of this top 10 battle. You can see in the background there, a bit of a penalty there for Francis McGinn, down in 12th position here so far. Again, another name that we've seen in our top 16 Superstars races to date. If you haven't watched those on the GT YouTube channel, get yourself over there and have a little look, because it's very, very interesting to see how some of these drivers are comparing. Meanwhile, SRC SVDR in the lead of this race, still 0.6 of a second ahead of Williams B Racer, not quite able to pull out enough of a gap. We've seen in the Oceania region race so far, the top 2 were able to break away a little bit compared to the rest of the field, but no such luck there so far for these drivers, not working together, clearly involved in their own battles and their own thought process at the moment. And it's getting very exciting. Oh, a bit wide there for PR1 Will in the chicane. That's going to compromise it, and it's going to allow CL16, the Dutch driver, to pull alongside on corner exit. Side by side we come down the second half of the Mulsanne straight then. Keep an eye out for PR1 Yasete, who's in the slipstream, ready to try and go 3 wide then. And we are going 3 wide down the Mulsanne straight. This is very exciting indeed. here in this Toyota Supra race then. Who is going to get track position? Well, you can see PR1 Yasete ready to take advantage against his PR1 teammate of Will, and it looks like CL16 is going to be the big loser in all of this here. So into the heavy braking zone of that second chicane we go. PR1 Will holds on to 7th position there, just ahead of his Spanish teammate, and then CL16 very close behind, and looks like MGM Racing, having made a mistake there, is going to fall foul of this duo now and potentially lose 2 or 3 positions here.
A little bit of a bump there for Sarthe on the wheel just to try and get them up ahead of MGM Racing. That's what a mistake does around it, especially back in the pack where you do not want to be. These guys are fighting tooth and nail over this 6th position at the moment, so we come now down to the Mulsanne corner again. CL16 on the outside there behind with MGM on the inside. They're going to go single file. No, MGM comes through there. A bit of hip and shoulder. CL16 gets punted out wide. That allows Greaser through behind as well. These guys really going at it in the midfield, but the entire time this is happening, guess what? Those top 5 drivers are just pulling away. You can't even see them in the same shot anymore. So it's all well and good fighting for position, but these guys have been squabbling so much that they've lost contact with that top 5.
So then, let's see what will happen over the remaining course of this race. We're already at the halfway stage, by the way. It goes by very quickly here, despite it being a 4-minute lap duration for these drivers. Look at the top 5, as you said, Jimmy, having broken away quite significantly there. Williams Koke just at the back of this squabbling quintet, if you will refer to it as that, for 5 drivers battling for position. Into the right-hander we go then, onto the accelerator and shifting up the gearbox, and Williams Koke there. Will he be working with his teammate of Williams Gio, Giorgio Mangano, to try and do something? What about Williams B Racer there in 2nd position? Valerio Gallo, will he be ready to try and take advantage as well? There is SRC SVDR at the forefront of your shots, coming down now in towards these Porsche curves. All of these drivers very similarly matched on pace, and as you can see, very close on track here as well. Riding on board here with GTA Creaser, who's got a good view of this battle going on for 6th position still. It rains on between these drivers, a little bit wide there through the first part of the Porsche curves. You can see how smooth you have to be in these cars, Jimmy. It doesn't reward the driver who is aggressive. You have to be just almost like a spoon through treacle going through these corners.
I mean, I'm not sure how fast that'll be, Tom, but, but yeah, you've got to be careful with these things. You're allowed a little bit of a slide, but don't be too aggressive with it. When you start soaring the wheel, this thing really doesn't react to that very well. It likes to be, as you say, kind of finessed around these corners despite the oversteer, so there is an element of that to it. Look at back there, look how much better and more confident that B Racer is there in the braking zone compared to SVDR here, and of course that initial lead that SVDR had has been just eroded away by the slipstream round here. We come on to lap 3 now, with the top 5 being separated by about a second, with a gap of 3.5 seconds there. You can see the gap there on your screen, down to 6th place, that 2nd group. And Koke Lopez starting to fall off the back of this pack as well, but I'm sure he'll come back as we get into the draft there. So this is the weird point in the race at the moment, because you know you're in the top 5 if you're in this pack, you know you've got a chance of winning it, but then when do you start pushing forward? Because as soon as you're at the head of the pack, as SVDR is at the moment, then you're the one punching that hole in the air, giving everybody else a draft. You're the one that is most vulnerable in the group, but of course you're the one that is leading the race, so it's a bit of a catch-22. You have to pick the right time to strike.
Well, will they? But the right time to strike. Couple of penalties being given there once again for MGM Racing there in 8th position, and PCM STJ down in now 10th position, potentially 9th place as he just gets himself ahead of GTA Creaser here. Riley on board with Koke Lopez. We are once again in the background of this drivers battling for position. 15 times tyre wear, just to remind you, on these sports hard tyres, so these tyres will be getting a little bit more worn than they would have been doing otherwise. As Jimmy likes to reference, of course, 1 lap is the equivalent to 15 here, so these drivers are about ready to do about 45 laps at the end of lap 3, so they will be going towards the end of their useful shelf life. There's PR1 Will being given a penalty in 7th position. He'll be ready to serve that very shortly indeed, because the penalty zone here is at the worst possible place, or one of the 3 penalty zones here, and that is on this Mulsanne straight. And you don't just lose 1 second, of course, you lose the time that you have lost as a result of you losing that momentum as well, and it can cost you very dearly indeed. Will it cost PR1 Will a position? He was 2.8 seconds ahead of MJM Racing. I think he might just be safe to fight another day.
There's a penalty for him too as well, Tom, so they're all, this is what's happened here. We've always say around here, just staying away from those penalty zones, and they are quite stringent around here. You've got to be careful. Is the key to being in the race at the end here. You can maybe not be at the pace of the leaders, but if you just keep it clean, like Giuseppe, for example, then you're going to be finding yourselves up in the top 6, top 5 position. But Coco Lopez now starting to fall to the back of this lead group, which means it's going to be now between 4 cars towards the end of the race. If it stays the same, here is that lead group, and there's Coco Lopez just barely hanging on at the back there. He's at 0.8 seconds. He's going to start getting a little bit faint at the back of the grid, so he needs to start really making a few lunges coming into these braking zones to try and get back into that draft as quick as he can. Maybe turn up the car to Ritz if he hasn't done so already. Here's the view right now from Valerio Gallo, B-Racer, freshly signed by the Williams team. He seems to have a new lease of license then, Tom, hasn't he? He's been a lot quicker, a lot more consistent since he's joined the team.
Great to see from Valerio Gallo as well. We know he's a driver who has got significant pace behind the wheel, but we haven't necessarily seen it at World Tour events. He's challenging for the race lead. Keep an eye on his right-hand mirror, though, because he's got a mirror full of the Hungarian driver of Zarthe, who's ready to try and take advantage as well. Down this straight we go. Williams B-Racer there lifting off the throttle, as you can see, and a bit of contact into Indianapolis. That's going to send SRC SVDR off into the gravel. It allows ROHC to come through, and that has ruined the Polish driver's race. And just as we were hyping up Valerio Gallo and Williams B-Racer of that driver there, it has cost him very dearly indeed. The commentator's curse is alive and well, I'm sorry to say.
That is a real shame. It looks like there's been another mistake on top of that for Williams B-Racer. He's dropping down the field very, very quickly indeed, down to 12th place now, and a penalty. Maybe he's waiting for SRC, or no, I don't think he is. I think he's made another mistake coming back from that. But that's one of the things here, is that the brakes on these cars aren't quite as sensitive as they are on a race car. So if the guy in front of you brakes suddenly, you don't usually have the time to get out of the way or stop as well. And I think there, for example, maybe he was caught out with the braking zone of SVDR, or maybe he was braking a little bit too late himself, and that's just taken him way out of the contention now. And now, what was 5 cars has now been reduced to 3, which is Rostig, Giorgio Mangano, and Coco Lopez. 2 Williams drivers in the top 3 at the moment, but second and third, that's not where they want to be. They want to be one better. And here now is the squabble, as this has happened at the back of the pack. First penalties, all these cars now really super close together, and SRC SVDR, who was leading this race, had led every lap so far. It's now the head of this pack for 6th position. It's going to be a very, very fast finish here in the midfield.
Yeah, he'll look like he's won the lottery but lost the ticket. SRC SVDR down there in 6th position, now squabbling for the lower half of the top 10, just leading this train of cars. It's like watching Jarno Trulli in Formula 1, isn't it? Doing a good job there in 6th position to just hold off that charge there so far. He'll have wanted to have been squabbling for this lead, which now Zarthe. ROH Stig leads the way from Williams GO. Giorgio Mangano in 2nd position. Williams Coque now inherits 3rd place as a result of that one. And PR1 Yasete, who was the fastest man last time around, over a second clear of some of the times at the front of the field, in 4th position, is ready to try and challenge for the podium here in this final lap. He'll have a hard task to try and break down that gap of 2.4 seconds, but he is looking very comfortable indeed. It might have come a little bit too little too late, but still good pace from the Spaniard at the moment. Through Tetra Rouge we go, onto the Mulsanne straight for the last time of asking. Then you can just see at the bottom, by the way, of the timing screen, if you're wondering about TRL Org, he has come to the pit lane, has given up the ghost, but hasn't left the session, so he's down there in 20th position. That's why he's got a 320-second pit stop. I wouldn't worry about him if I were you. I would worry about this battle for the lead, though. ROH Stig versus Williams Gio then, side by side, down the Mulsanne straight then. Hungarian versus Italian, Supra versus Supra. Outside line then, ready to come into the chicane, is Williams Gio of Giorgio Mangano, going to be able to brake later and take the lead away from Zarthe. Side by side under braking we go. ROH Stig just holds on in the first phase of this one, but is that going to leave him a sitting duck in the next part of the straight?
You see how the cars move around in the braking zone. It's kind of the really fun thing about having a road car around here, is the suspension is not quite as stiff as a race car. Of course, it is still sport suspension, it's still very decent on a windy road somewhere, but around here you can see how the cars just pitch as they whack the anchors onto the big stops. It's always great to watch, and great that it's simulated here in GT Sport. Coco Lopez on board now. He is sitting behind his teammate, and this is the thing, do you work together here as teammates, or is it really just every man for themselves? Coming into the second chicane, you see Giorgio Mangano goes very deep on the brakes, closes up towards the apex, but then has a little bit of a worse exit, and again allows Rostig just to pull away a little bit. We're getting into the last parts of the race now, where people are going to have to really be thinking about, where do I attack, where do I go for that last move, because of of course, it's one big high-speed chess game here at Le Mans. These guys are probably the most experienced high-speed chess players you'll find on the internet. So,
if this was you, Jimmy, where would you be thinking about a move?
I want to do it probably coming out of this corner here into Indianapolis, and then defending heavily into the Porsche curves if I had a gap. If you can get close enough coming out of Arnage, the tight corner, the run down to the Porsche curves, and you can do it there, but that's not really guaranteed. So here is an easier place to do it, but it's hard to make the call because you never know how the other guy is going to react.
So then, it's getting very exciting indeed. 3 different nationalities squabbling for the win in the EMEA Region Toyota GR Supra GT Cup race, coming through the right-handed kink, ready to head into Indianapolis for the final time then. Still a 0.2 of a second advantage for ROHC. Look at this battle for 6th place as well, because BFR Albathor is about to attack the French-speaking Belgian driver of TX3 Sarthe in 7th position. He's got a half-second penalty for exceeding track limits there, presumably heading into Indianapolis. Not quite close enough to make anything stick through there, but PCM STJ goes a bit wide, bit sideways, and he's going to go off the track. That's going to allow these drivers to come through. So a simple mistake there costs him 2 positions and gives him a penalty for exceeding track limits. 2 for 1 for Albathor there. We'll take that. He says thank you very much. We'll go up to 6th place after that. I'm interested to see the front of the field though, whereas Giorgio Mangano, is he close enough to roast stick to make a move coming down to the Porsche curves? Here we come then. This is really Mangano's last chance to make something work. He dives up the inside of one of the forward curves. There he goes, comes into the first right-hander. Not quite close enough, Tom, I don't think. This is getting very exciting indeed through this second half of the Porsche curves, riding on board here with Giorgio Mangano through the left-hander. Then they're going to flick it right. Is he going to think about something? Maybe into the Ford chicane, closes up very closely into the second half of this Porsche curves, then into the left-hander. If he gets it right, gets a good drive out of here, that could potentially set him up very nicely coming into this final chicane then. So it's Zsolt Szarka versus Giorgio Mangano for the win here in the Toyota GR Supra GT Cup race for round 3. ROHD goes defensive then. The Hungarian driver defends his line, doesn't allow Mangano to take the outside line and the inside line for the next corner. Very close indeed, but he blocks the line. Koke ready to try and take advantage, and he has a lunge nearly up the inside to the final chicane. Can't make it stick. Zsolt Szarka takes the win in the Toyota Supra GR Supra Cup race. Over the line we go. Williams Gio takes second. Williams Koke in third, as there was contact at the line there at the checkered flag between the 2 Williams Esports teammates. They take second and third on the road ahead of PR1 Yasete in 4th and PR1 Will in 5th position. Well, over the timing line there. There we go. That is how it finishes. SRC SVDR takes 7th place in the end at the checkered flag. No fault of his own. He was on for battling for the lead and potentially the win as well, and he will be very disappointed with that. In stark comparison to this man's emotions, Zsolt Szarka, who will be elated. That was, for lack of, if I didn't know better, I'd say that was an intentional swipe there from Giorgio Mangano at the end, coming across to block Koke Lopez. There was a bit of, I think, a bit of contact between them in the last chicane there, but that looked filthy from my point of view. It may be different. It may just be, as you say, might have caught a bit of the grass and gone to the right, but it did look like he kind of came across to block him at the end there, which is bad because they're both teammates. You don't want to have that discussion afterwards, do you? No, I'd love to see an action replay of that one. The upshot is that this is how it finishes on the road then. So ROH Stig, Zsolt Szarka takes the win in the 3rd round of the Toyota GR Supra GT Cup ahead of Williams Gio and Williams Koke. Then PR1 Yasete, fastest man in that race with the quickest lap in 4th place ahead of PR1 Will. Then BFR Albathor, SRC SVDR in 7th place, just running at the top 10. TX3 Sarthe and Francis McGinn in 10th position. MGM Racing, well, disappointing there for him, down in 11th place. Even more disappointing for Williams B Racer in 12th position ahead of Rick Kevelan. Then PR1 Ponce, then CL16 in 15th position. GTP Aguila, who made some ground after starting right at the back of the field, down in 16th place ahead of VQS Fons. PRST Alpine, GTA Creaser down in 19th position. TRL Org, as we saw, did not make the checkered flag. So that is our 20 drivers. That is how they all finished in that race. This is what it means for the points rankings. 3 rounds, Williams Gio still sits at the top of the order to 716 points by the smallest of margins to Williams B Racer. So, if that incident between himself and SRC SVDR wouldn't have happened, we might have seen a change at the top. Yeah, speaking of SRC, does not feature at all in this standings at the moment. It's maybe one of his first races there, but in the top 5, we have 3 Williams Esports drivers. So I think it's fair to say they've got things on lockdown right now. Yeah, absolutely right there, Jimmy. What was your highlight in particular of that race? I think just it was mad all the way through, really, wasn't it? This is what you like to see at these races, when it's a bit closer, people getting a bit more aggressive. I think it was a shame to see SVDR get kind of punted off by
by Mr. B Racer, but that happens sometimes around here. But otherwise, I think it was quite good, respectful racing up until, of course, the end with Koke and GR. I'm interested to see what will come of that, if anything.
Yeah, wouldn't mind being the smallest fly on the wall in the Williams team debrief after that one. Anyway, that brings an end to round 3 of the Toyota GR Supra GT Cup. Round 4 takes place on the 21st of June at Laguna Seca. Get yourself onto GT Sport, click on Sport Mode, you'll find all of the details on how to get involved there, and you never know, we might be shouting about you very, very soon indeed. From Jimmy Broadbent and from myself, Tom Brooks, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.